we find throughout the whole parasha, which I don't think we're going to have time to cover, we find a very, very interesting contrast between the values of Abraham Avinu and his household and the values of Lot, and not personally Lot, but the values of the place where Lot chose to live, which is Sodom and Amorah. This is what we're going to find in our parasha. We're going to try to focus on seeing the differences and where do they come from. Okay, so our parasha begins with the appearance of Hashem to Abraham. Vayera elav Hashem be'elone mamre. Oh, I have 5 people waiting for the Zoom. Okay. Vayera elav Hashem be'elone mamre, והוא יושב פתח האוהל כחום היום. Hashem appears to him be'elone mamre, and he was sitting at the entrance of the tent in the heat of the day. So first of all, the fact that it says Hashem appeared to him, and it doesn't say Hashem appeared to Abraham, it says to him. From here we understand that this is a continuation to what was told to us on the previous parasha. And how did the previous parasha end? If you don't remember, you can go and see. How did the previous parasha end? With Brit Milah. Excellent. The previous parasha ended with the mitzvah that Hashem commanded to Abraham to circumcise himself and his household. How old was Abraham when he had his Brit Milah? Abraham was 99 years old. According to Maimonides, to a Rambam, 99 years old of Abraham is like 99 years old today. He was an old man. We cannot minimize that. You know, actually, just to share with you something beautiful. Yesterday, my husband comes home and he shares with me a call that he had. And he says, do you remember so-and-so? I do not remember the name. He says, yes, it was in Atlanta. We lived in Atlanta 17 years ago. And this person wasn't Jewish. And him and a group, together with a group of people from his church, started questioning themselves about the things that they were taught there. And they started inquiring about the real values, the Bible, the Torah. When they study the Bible in their church, they say, okay, so this is the truth. So then let's go to the sources. And this person, I don't remember his name, but doesn't matter, I wouldn't mention it now. He called my husband yesterday. My husband gave them a class just to explain to them certain questions that they had. And he said, listen, this is the Torah doesn't want from anybody to convert. You have the 7 mitzvot of Bnei Noach. If you fulfill them, you are totally okay. But they got with the curiosity and they engaged in a process of how many years? I said 17 years. So yesterday he called my husband. He says, I call you to tell you that this week, finally, I got my Brit Milah. This week, I finally got my Brit Milah, and I'm getting married to my wife on Sunday. I don't know when he said. And he was so emotional because he was sharing all the process of study that they had throughout these years. Now, this is a conversion that is absolutely Leshem Shamayim. This is called Ger Tzedek, a person that converts to Judaism because he loves the Torah, he loves Hashem, he wants to be part of the Jewish nation, not because he wants to get married, not because he wants this, he wants that. But it was a beautiful thing to witness, especially when it comes close to this parashiot. And he gave to himself the name of Asher, and his wife is Rivka. So Asher and Rivka are getting married. On Sunday, they have married children. By the way, they are mature people. But Abraham is doing this and is why do I mention that this is connected to last week parasha? Because our rabbis tell us, when our parasha says, Vayera elav Hashem be'elonei mamre v'hu yoshev petach ha'oel, that when Hashem appears to Abraham, he's sitting at the entrance of his tent. This is happening when? Exactly and immediately after Abraham had his Brit Milah. The fact that he says Vayera elav to him, it means that this is a continuation. So after the Brit Milah, do you know how a person feels after a Brit Milah? After, an adult person, how does he feel after the Brit Milah? I can tell you, well, I can tell you that I saw a young man that, a long story, I always tell the story, I don't want to go into more stories. He was from Cuba. He was raised as a non-Jew, and then one day he discovered that his mom was Jewish. So then he was Jewish, but he didn't have Brit Milah, he didn't have anything. So he had to choose to have his Brit Milah. So he traveled from Atlanta to New York, he had his Brit Milah. I saw him when he came back. He could barely walk, he was so much in pain after a few days. And this was in a surgery, in a hospital with anesthesia, with good treatment. Can you imagine Abraham Avinu in those times without, the proper tools, etc.? So it wasn't a simple thing. It was a great nisayon, a great test that Abraham is going through and is accepting. So, I was thinking to myself, and it tells us here about the weather. It was hot, kechom hayom. When does the Torah is not a literature book. When you read and they tell you, and the birds were singing, and the sun was shining, and the flowers were. We don't have this type of descriptions in the Torah. Why is the Torah bringing me here? Kechom hayom. It was sitting there. It was very hot. It was the middle of the day. Vayera, vaysa enav, vayar v'hinei shlosha anashim nitzavim. And he looked, and there were 3 people standing there. So here, everybody knows this is from preschool. Everybody that has children in preschool, the kids are going to bring you the tent with the 4 entrances. This is what we learn from this parasha, that Abraham Avinu loved the mitzvah of achnasat orchim, of welcoming people, and he was very afraid that he would miss them. Now that he had the Brit Milah, there are midrashim that say that the fact that Abraham had a Brit Milah was known. So the voice went out, so people wouldn't want to bother him. So he didn't want anyone to stop from coming to him. He would sit at the entrance of his tent, not to miss the opportunity if he sees people passing by, to invite them and to bring them into his tent. So I was reading a few midrashim that speak about this mitzvah of achnasat orchim. Why did Abraham bring the people? Why did he bring them to his tent? So it explains here that Abraham had 2 reasons when he brought people to his tent. What was the main reason? Can you try to imagine? What is the reason why Abraham would invite people to come? Beautiful. That's the second one. That is not the known one, but the main simple one is that to help them. There is not a hotel, there is no a coffee place, there is not a restaurant. People are nomads in the desert. It's very hot. So Abraham welcomed them to his tent, and then he provides them with water, with food, with shade. Abraham planted trees. So it becomes like an oasis and like a beautiful place where it's pleasant to make a stop and to renew your energy when you are in a journey. So this is the first goal, to help others, to do chesed with others. The second beautiful command is that Abraham also would take the opportunity when people would come to him to teach them about the new way that he discovered, the belief in Hashem, who created the world, everything that we have is from him. People would tell Abraham, thank you so much for the water. What did Abraham say? Would Abraham say? Don't thank me. Don't thank him. Me, thank him, the one that provided us with everything we have. Don't thank me. This is, by the way, the goal, the purpose of the brachot, that we recognize that all the brachot, all the blessings that we have are coming from Hashem. So a few things that our Chachamim realize. If you look on the psukim from Aleph to Chet, the verb that repeats itself a lot is, you see on the third line, Vayarotz likratam, which means he ran towards them. Then, where is again? Vaymaher on pasuk vav, Vaymaher, and he went very, fast. And then what does he tell to Sarah? Vaymaher Abraham ohela el Sarah, Vayomer Mahari. So Abraham hastened to the tent to Sarah and said, hurry, 3 seahs of meal, fine flour, knead and make cakes. Then Abraham ran to the cattle, took a calf tender and good, and gave it to the youth who hurried to prepare it. He took cream and milk and the calf which he had prepared and placed this before them. He stood over them beneath the tree and they ate. So a few things that we see on the behaviors of Abraham Avinu. First of all, the verb Vayarot, Vaymaher, Mahari, the excitement, the running. There is many ways of doing chesed, of performing a mitzvah, of helping others. You can say, okay, whatever. Your husband brought somebody to Shabbat table. Say, okay, do we have to have this person? I wasn't expecting. I didn't cook enough. We can do it like this, or we can. What else can I bring? Run to the basement, go to the freezer, bring this, bring that, and be happy and have a smile. And another thing that we see with Abraham Avinu. By the way, what I say here, if we compare to Lot, because these 3 men to come to Abraham are, we all know they are angels. Yes, they are emissaries from Hashem. They appear in a shape of men. The same 3 men are going to come to Lot. Lot is also going to welcome them. Lot is also going to make achnasat orchim, but we don't find the verb vaymaher, vayarot, mahari. We don't find that Lot is so overly excited with the mitzvah. Second, we find about Avraham Avinu that is not working alone. He's making the people of his house part of this endeavor. He calls the Nar. Some people say that it was Ishmael, others say it was Eliezer. He shares this mitzvah especially with his wife, Sarah. They are partners on this. This is how, if you tell your wife, fast, bring the cakes, and she doesn't complain, what does it mean? She's used to this. This is part of you've been doing always. But if you come out of the blue one day and you tell your wife, I want you to prepare this, and she's not used to it, it's not part of your mission statement as a family, then you're going to hit a wall. But it seems to be that this was part of something that they are doing together. They're working together. Another element that our rabbis learn from Avraham Avinu's behavior. Chachamim tell us, Emor me'at va'aseh arbe. Emor me'at means say little and do a lot. Do not make too many promises. Do not expand on I'm going to do for you, I'm going to help, I can say little. In the world of the words, keep it short. In the world of the actions, keep it large. Why that? Why we say less and from what we do? Why is that the recommendation of our rabbis? You cannot always keep your promises. What if you say, you know what, I want you to come to us every Shabbat. Imagine you know of a friend, she's alone. I want you every Shabbat to eat with us. Yes, you have the best of the intentions, but perhaps that's too much. Perhaps you're not going to be able to do that. So don't say it. You think about it, okay, go one by one. Every Shabbat invite that person. And then you do what you can. What is Abraham saying? He says, how does it say Emor Me'at? He says, Yukachna, pasuk dalet, fourth pasuk. Let some water be brought and wash your feet and recline beneath the tree. I'm going to bring you some water, and then we fetch a morsel of bread that you may sustain yourself. He says, let me bring you water and bread. This is what Abraham says. It reminds me of my man, Zichrona Libracha. When he invited people, he would say, come for a coffee. Come for a coffee. That coffee, of course, everybody knows what a Yiddish mami's coffee's table means. It's a whole table with plenty of things. Come for, no, even not coffee. In Spanish, you say, cafecito. Come for a little coffee. That's how you present it. But then, of course, you offer much more. So Abraham is offering water and bread. And what is he offering? He's telling, bring the meal, find flour, knead and make cakes, ran to the cattle, took a calf tender and good, gave it to the youth who are to prepare it. He makes a barbecue. He makes a whole meal when he only offered water and bread. Okay, so this is the first thing that we see with Abraham Avinu. Then they ask Abraham, where is your wife? I'm on page 81. They said to him, where is Sarah, your wife? And he said, behold, in the tent. And he said, I will surely return to you at this time next year. And behold, Sarah, your wife, will have a son. Now Sarah was listening at the entrance of the tent, which was behind him. On last week parasha, Abraham already was told that he's going to have a son. Now they are coming to give the news also to Sarah. Now the Torah brings like a parenthesis, like the narrator is saying, Abraham and Sarah were old, well on in years. The manner of women had ceased to be with Sarah. And Sarah laughed at herself, saying, after I have withered, shall I again have delicate skin, and my husband is old? Then Hashem said to Abraham, why is it that Sarah that Sarah laughed, saying, shall I in truth bear a child though I have aged? Is anything beyond Hashem? At the appointed time, I will return to you at this time next year, and Sarah will have a son. Sarah denied it, saying, I did not laugh, for she was frightened. But he said, no, you laughed indeed. Okay, so it's a very strange episode. They're coming to tell Abraham that Sarah is going to have a son. Sarah is on the other side. The tents were separated for men and women, but she's listening. Sarah knew as a very good wife to keep distance, to let her husband have privacy, but she wanted to know what's going on at her home. So she is listening. What are these guests coming about? And then they are telling him that they're going to have a son. Now, having a son when you are 99 years old and your wife is 90, or perhaps that's a little bit ridiculous, even in those times, because it says, Sarah did not have what? Her period anymore. So it says here that she was laughing at herself. How did she laugh? Ha, 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 ha. No, she didn't laugh like this. It was in her mind, in her thoughts. That's why when the angels are telling, why did your wife laugh? She says, no, I didn't laugh. She didn't laugh. But in her mind, she was laughing at the idea. Rabbi Hanan Porat says, whenever you have certain thoughts that are hidden in your subconscious, unless you bring them out, you're not going to be able to treat them. Unless Sarah recognizes that she laughed, she's not going to be able to fix. What did she need to fix here? Her emunah. Because when you laugh, it's like saying, this is impossible. And once she acknowledged, yes, I laughed. And then she has to think, wait, who is telling me that I'm going to have a child? This is Hashem, the God that my husband and myself have been teaching about all these years. The God that we believe that created the world, the one that saved my husband from being burnt in Urka's beam. He's all powerful. So wouldn't he be always also powerful enough to allow me to give birth? So then there is a Rabbi Abulafia. He says that in the moment that this conversation is happening, a transformation happens to Sarah, and she starts menstruating again. Can you imagine that? Then that's for sure reassures that what you are listening is possible. What? Again? Yes, I know nobody would want that, but but if you want a child, that's necessary. And something interesting that happens in our parasha later on, we know that Abraham and Sarah are going through the land of Abimelech, and Sarah is kidnapped again as she was with Paro. Now, what rabbis tell us, why was she kidnapped? Because she regained youth. She was beautiful and pretty, and again, like a young girl. And it's like two miracles are happening here. Sarah regains youth. She becomes younger. She gets her period again. Abraham doesn't have any changes. There are two miracles. One miracle is that Sarah becomes young in order to be able to bear a child and get pregnant and give birth. The second miracle is that Abraham, being old, 99 years old, is going to be able to begot a child. Is going to be able to father a child at this age. So this is what happens with Abraham and Sarah. And now, Pasuk 17, we're going to go a little bit about what happens with Sodom. Rashi tells us that 3 angels are sent to Abraham, and usually the angels are emissaries of Hashem, and usually every emissary comes for one mission. So one of the angels came for the mission of sending refuah shlema to Abraham, for healing Abraham. The second one came for the purpose of announcing them about the child. And the third one came to let Abraham know about what's going to happen in Sodom and Amorah. So in Sodom and Amorah, on Pasuk 16, ויקומו משם אנשים וישקיפו על פני סדום ואברהם הולך עמם לשלחם והשם אמר המכסה אני מאברהם אשר אני עושה ואברהם היו יהיה לגוי גדול ועצום ולמלכו בכל גוי הארץ כי דעתי למען אשר יצווה את בניו ואת ביתו אחריו ושמרו דרך השם לעשות צדקה ומשפט למען נביא השם על אברהם את אשר דיבר עליו. So I'm reading in the English. So the men got up from there and gazed down towards Sodom while Abraham walked with them to escort them. And Hashem said, now Pasuk 17 is giving us a weird opportunity to read behind the lines what are the thoughts, I make it quote unquote, of Hashem. What are the thoughts of Hashem here? Hashem said, shall I conceal from Abraham what I do? Like, how can I not? Hashem is thinking, again, kiva yachol, quote unquote. Hashem is thinking, how can I not share with Abraham what I'm about to do? What is it I'm about to do? Now, and why? He says, now that Abraham is surely to become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth shall bless themselves by him. For I have loved him, because he commands his children and his household after him that they keep the way of Hashem, doing charity and justice, in order that Hashem might then bring upon Abraham that which he had spoken of him. This is a so powerful message in these few psukim. First of all, Hashem says, I need to share what I'm doing with Abraham. I want to share from my actions with Abraham. Why? Abraham is going to become a great nation, not only great in numbers, it's going to become great in the sense that they're going to be promoting my ideas in the world. So I want Abraham and his people to know how I function, number one. Number two, what is good about Abraham? What is that Hashem is praising Abraham? He says, Ki edaativ, I love him. You know why I love him, says Hashem? Why does Hashem love Abraham? Because he commands his children and his household after him, that they keep the way of Hashem, doing charity and justice. What do I like about Abraham, says Hashem? That whatever I teach him, whatever he learns, whatever he discovers, he is going to pass it on to his children. Imagine a great Talmid Chacham, a prodigy, knows the whole Torah, the whole Talmud, the whole Mishnah, everything that was written, absolutely a genius. But he keeps it to himself. What value does it have? You understand? Hashem is saying, I love Abraham. It is important for me to instruct Abraham what I'm about to do, because he's going to pass along that information. And why is that important? And let's see why. What is, by the way, I'm talking a little bit like having in mind that perhaps you know what is happening. Let me just tell you in 2 words. What is happening now? Hashem is sending this man to Sodom and Amorah to do what? To destroy Sodom and Amorah. Hashem is sending them to erase Sodom and Amorah from the planet. So Hashem says, I need to share this with Abraham. Why do I need to share this with Abraham? Number 1, I know he's going to explain to his children, but why is that important? There are 2 messages here. Number 1, I want him to understand that everything that I do in this world is done with justice. Imagine you don't know anything about Sodom and Amorah. Imagine you see the terrible tragedy that happens there, and you see everything burned and misery and people dying. What would you think? How much cruelty? How can God allow this? But Hashem wants, I want Abraham to know why I am doing this. This is coming from a place of justice. That's number 1. Second, Hashem wants us to learn to be like him. Mahu rachum, afata rachum. Hashem wants us to know about his qualities, the qualities of Hashem, because he wants us to learn to act in those ways. So in this case, is Hashem wants us to act with justice. But I think this is so precious to know that the main reason that Hashem loves Abraham is that Abraham took for himself the position of a teacher for his children. And this is a very important lesson that we need to take for ourselves. We have a huge responsibility to teach our children, and that means I have a huge responsibility to do what we're doing here, to learn, to enrich myself, to know what Hashem wants from me, then I can teach my children after that. Let's see a little bit of what happens in Sodom. So Hashem is telling Abraham, so Hashem said on 20, because the outcry of Sodom and Gomorrah has become great, and because their sin has become grave, I will descend and see if they act in accordance with its outcry, which has come to me, then destruction. And if not, I will know. The men turned from there and went to Sodom while Abraham was still standing before Hashem. So why Hashem says the outcry of Sodom came to me? There are many midrashim and many perushim about this. Anybody knows what does it mean the outcry of Sodom came to me? What is the outcry of Sodom? So our rabbis tell us, what was Sodom and Amorah? Sodom and Amorah, they were located in a very, very wealthy area. It was very green, there was a lot of water, it was very rich. So Chachamim tell us, let me see, give me 1 second. Yes, here. אנשי סדום לא נתגאו אלא בשביל טובה שהשפיע להם הקדוש ברוך הוא. So אנשי סדום, they are רעים וחטאים מאוד, they're very bad. But how did they become bad and arrogant and cruel? The חכמים tell us, in מסכת סנהדרין, in the Gemara, אנשי סדום לא נתגאו אלא בשביל טובה שהשפיע להם הקדוש ברוך הוא. What made them become bad? The טובה שהשפיע להם הקדוש ברוך הוא, all the good, all the wealth, all the abundance that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave them. Amru, what did it cost to them? Imagine Hashem blesses somebody with wealth, you become millionaire, you become rich, you can become You can take advantage of all your wealth to do a lot of good. You can become a benevolent person. You can support many causes. You can help many poor people. You can support many study places. You can enjoy your life, but at the same time, it doesn't necessarily have to make you bad. But Anshe Sdom did not choose the good way. What did they do? They said, כי מאחר שארץ ממנה יצא להם לחם ועפרות זהב, למה לנו עובדי דרכים? They say, this land is so rich that we discovered we can have so much bread. We have amazing mines of metals and gold. It was very rich area. So then they say, למה לנו עובדי דרכים? Why do we want transients, you say? People that pass by here. We don't want visitors. Why we don't want visitors? We have so much in this land. We want it for us. We don't want others to come. Then perhaps we will have to share with them. They will get interested in what we have. We don't want them because they come to, if they come and we have to give them, we're going to have less. Then they said, let's create a constitution. Let's create rules that will avoid from people to join us, that will prevent from people to come through us, by us. And that's what they see. They say, one of the rules, look, one of the rules. They proclaimed in Sdom and they said, כל מי שהוא מחזיק ידי עני ואביון בפת לחם, יישרף באש. Whoever supports a poor person with bread, with a piece of bread, will be burnt with fire. What happened? What happened one time? It seems to be that it was the daughter of Sodom. They say about her, her name was Plotit. They say about Plotit, the daughter of Lot. She was married to one of the people, great people of Sodom. She saw one poor person that was really in a miserable way in the street. She felt so bad. So every day when she went to bring water from the well, she would put underneath the pit, food from her house. She would hide food. She would pass through the poor and leave the food there, let's say behind a rock or whatever. And that's how she would go to take the water. And she thought nobody will know. But what happened? They started asking themselves, hey, this homeless person that is laying here already 4 or 5 days, by today should be dead. How is he alive? He looks actually pretty good. And then they went and they checked and they investigated. And when they found her, they put her naked. They put honey in her body next to a place of bees, and they came and they killed her in this way. This is the ruling that happened in Sodom. This is why I say we can see the values of Abraham Avinu against the values of Sodom. This is absolutely opposite to what we are. So Abraham Avinu prays for them and asks from them, Hashem, perhaps there are 50, perhaps there are 45. What if there are 40? What if Abraham doesn't get even to 10? Hashem says, okay, I want you to learn my justice. Yes, you're right. If there is 50, I will not destroy. If there is 45, I will not destroy. If there is, at the end, Hashem destroys Sodom and Amorah. And Abraham learns that this is done with justice because of what they did. I'm going to do 5 more minutes on the parasha, and then I'm going to speak a little bit more about how do we teach our children kindness. I think all what we learn now is already saying a lot about kindness. What happens? The angels tell Lot and his daughters to escape. It's crazy how we see the values of Lot being absolutely blurred. From one side, we see that he has achnasat orchim. He welcomes guests as Abraham, and he wants to bring the men inside. But then when the mob outside wants these men, you know what Lot offers them? No, don't hurt them. They are my guests. Like, understand, we are good to our guests. You know what he offers them? Take my daughters. There we see how the values of Lot have absolutely been corrupted by living with this corrupt society. They escape. At one point, his wife becomes a salt statue. Everybody knows that because she looks back. But then they are only Lot and his two daughters. These two daughters, when they see all the smoke and all what has become of Sodom and Gomorrah, they think that this is not only Sodom and Gomorrah, they think that the whole world has been destroyed. So then they tell one to each other, let's give our father wine to drink, and while he is drunk, let's be with him, so there will be continuity. So the first one does it, and the Torah says here, on page 91, so they plied their father with wine on that night, and the older one came and lay with her father, and he was not aware of her lying down and of her getting up. And it was on the next day that the older one said to the younger, behold, I lay with my father last night, let us ply him with wine tonight as well, and you come lay with him that we may give life to offspring through our father. So then they plied their father with wine that night also, and the younger one got up and lay with him, and he was not aware of her lying down and of her getting up. As Lot's two daughters conceived from their father. The older bore a son, and she called his name Moab, which means Me'av, from dad. Look at the name that this child is carrying. He is the ancestor of Moab until this day. And the younger one also bore a son, and she called his name Ben Ami. He is the ancestor of the children of Amnon until this day. So look at 33, the interpretation is very interesting, because when we read here, we see a very innocent Lot, right? What does he know? He's drunk. He doesn't have any idea of what's happening. Look what the Peru says here. He didn't know of her lying down and of her getting up. Getting up. In the Torah scroll, this word has a dot over it. Look at the Bekuma. You see Ubekuma that has like a dot over the word in Hebrew? On Pasuk Lamed Dalet. You see page 90, Ubekuma has a dot. A traditional method of drawing attention to a special interpretation. It indicates that though he was not aware of her laying down, he was well aware of her getting up. Like he was half drunk, but suddenly he sees a woman laying next to him, and then is his daughter. So if you saw that the first time, you should be very, very, very careful that it doesn't happen the second time. Not to drink, of course. Nevertheless, he was not more vigilant on the second night than he was on the first. That shows the terrible deterioration of Lot's morality. And as this is for one time, we should have a class on, drinking according to the Torah. This is the second time that we are encountering drinking. The first time was with Noah. The second time is with Lot. And we see the terrible, terrible consequences that it can bring, how careful and cautious we need to bring with it. Okay, so now I'm going to go a little bit about our children, and this should be another hour or two. Whoever needs to leave, you are welcome, you are okay. I'm not getting offended, I understand. I'm going to do more a little bit of parenting. So I really feel that we live in days that, unfortunately, the values that are surrounding us are so much more Sodom and Gomorrah than Abraham values. And I don't mean that there are rules, do not have guests. There are not rules like that. But the rules, more or less, in our children's schools could be, if you want to be cool, be mean. If you want to be cool, don't accept everybody. The more popular you are, perhaps the more you are exquisite about how to be kind to the person that is vulnerable and to the person that is not exactly the main person in the classroom. And we see that, and we see how much pain is caused in our children and sometimes in adults as well. So what can we do? Is there anything that we can do? Is there anything that we can do? So I believe that we can. And I believe that the statement that I emphasized so strongly before about what Hashem is saying about why I love Abraham. I love Abraham. I chose Abraham because he teaches his children. And there is one thing that we need to perhaps, I wouldn't say switch this, make a switch, but I would say turn on that switch, is that whenever we speak about building character, we have to relate to that on the same way that I relate to fasting on Yom Kippur or to eating kosher. This is in the Torah, and this is in the Torah. This is part of my culture, and this is part of my culture. And the same way I would get horrified if I see my child taking a non-kosher something on the supermarket or putting in his mouth, I would scream, right? Right? We would get crazy if I hear that my child went to a playgroup and they gave him, God forbid, I don't know, I would go far as to say something done from pig. We will be horrified. That's how we have to get horrified when I see my children involved in behaviors that are not expressing kindness, that are meanness, that are not being nice to the other, are not considering the feelings of others. You know, if you take a child 1 year old and there is, I don't know, a bag or a worm or something on the floor, that 1 year old can take that and eat it, right? Right? Today you give a worm to a 5 years old, how will he react? He will be disgusted. He won't be able to eat it. Why? Why? Why does he know? Why did he learn? He learned from my reactions. He learned from the way I react. Woo! No, don't! So the way parents will react to situations in a powerful way will have the power to instill in our children certain values. And you know, when they're very young, we don't realize. We don't think, you know, the sentence, they're young. We're going to see that perhaps in next parasha. No, I think it's in this parasha also, with Agar and Ishmael. I stayed on the beginning of the parasha this time. When the Torah says that Sarah saw that Ishmael metzachek with Ishmael, some Mefarshim say that why the Torah says metzachek is like laughing, that when Sarah came to Hagar and told her, listen, your child is acting in a very improper way with my son, you know what Hagar would say? They're playing. They're children. It's nothing. Don't make a big deal out of it. So sometimes that mistakes us, to think that they're children and they will be okay. So you start with a 3-4 years old. You know, I was with one of my grandkids. I don't want to say, I want to speak about my grandkids, but they're normal. And then one of the other children threw papers on the floor. And I can take the paper off the floor, but I asked from that child, please, can you help me? Can you help me? He looked at me, ignored me, and continued. And I didn't let go. And I called him, listen, when grandma calls you to help, you need to help. And then I explained, you know, it's difficult for me to bend down, whatever I made it. And I gave him a whole deal. I made a big deal out of it. And I spent time on that. And I gave him a whole speech. You know, when people are kind, when you are kind, children love to be your friends because they know that they can always count on you. Whatever it doesn't matter what I did. I just say that we need to spend time. We need to invest on teaching these values. Let me show you something that I found in one of the old books from Sarah Hannah Radcliffe. You can see how old is this book. The Delicate Balance is her parenting book, the Jewish one that she did. So she brings a story. Just through the story, I want to teach you what she says here. He says like this. One time a child comes home And the girl is telling her mom, today we played a trick on Mrs. Smith, the science teacher. When she was out of the room, we hid her glasses. She can't see a thing without them. When she came back, everyone pretended not to know where they were. She was frantic. Eventually, she found them inside her desk. But by the time the science period was almost over, we didn't have to do any work. So the girl is telling this victory that they had today. We didn't study at all. We hid the teacher's glasses. She was nervous. So the mother answers, I'm really glad you told me about that. I'm sure you don't realize, but this story has a big problem. And then the mother takes the opportunity to teach her. So then I'm not going to go into it, but she says, you know what it means to care about others, what it's empathy, what is to have good midot. Teach your children to think about their teachers as human beings. And I went a little bit far when I speak about a teacher. Teachers suffer, teachers have feelings, teachers care. I remember one time a parent came to me to tell me about how her child wrote something terrible in social media about one specific teacher, and that teacher quit the school from all the suffering that she got, from all the reactions that she got, from all the comments that she got, and that was terrible. So our children don't realize that teachers can have feelings, okay? So again, take time, invest in that. What else? How else can I help my children to become kind? The main thing, modeling it. If I speak a lot at home about, or if I invest a lot about on the clothing that I'm going to buy to them, or I'm speaking about what others bought, or this is a conversation at home, this is what they're going to care about. But if the conversation at home is more about how do we behave with people, or my children see that I paid attention, that person is lonely, let's invite that person for Shabbat. Or they come and they tell me a story about things that happen in the school with one of the friends. And I don't let that pass with bullying, with the protecting the vulnerable. That's something that happens a lot with our children. But what is the reaction at home? How do I relate to that? And again, it starts from the moment they are very young. It has to be there. When I stop, it's, you know what? We got used so much on caring about our children's education, but we care about, when we check a school, right? And I care about the education of my children. What am I checking? I'm checking the content, I'm checking the value of the education that the teachers are conveying. Are my children going to be able to continue in this high school, in this college IV? So I care about the information. We don't realize how important is at the same time that I care about what my children learn in content, how they help me, the parent, to build their character. So education involves two sides, and everyone has to check and test their own home. Am I focused only on the information, or am I focused as well on the character building? Another tip that I want to give you, what are the stories that we tell our children? That's, story time. Since the children are 1 year old, even before, we are telling stories to our children. That's an amazing, powerful tool to take advantage of the stories and to convey to them values. Of course, the parashiot of Bereshit are full of them. Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Rivka, Eliezer, Yosef, the brothers. We take advantage of the story, but there is so many more. There is a book, I don't know, I think it's translated. It's called Ko Asu Chachamenu. This is what our sages did. And it's about rabbis in the Talmud, full of stories of kindness, of helping, of sensitivity, of caring for others. So whenever I take advantage of this time of storytelling, and I use it to tell my children, this is going to also build them a very good background to use them in their life. Okay, so I'm taking another article from Sarah Hannah Radcliffe, just not to forget because I'm very short in time. Loving kindness starts at home. Again, doing acts of kindness at home. Model acts of loving kindness and invite children to join you. A friend is sick. What do we do? What do you do when you hear that your child tells you he's 3 years old, and he tells you, Moshe didn't come today to school? What do you do as a parent? You let it pass, or you take the opportunity to teach your child, oh, your friend didn't come? Let's check on him. Let me call his mommy. Let's check. Perhaps he's sick, and if he's sick, let's make a card. Let's send him a card. Let's wish him refuah shlema. This is very, very important, and they enjoy that. Teach children to be good hosts and hostesses. When they have friends over, they bring a friend for a play date. How do we teach our children? I will never forget. I came to visit once. I was living in South America. I came to visit to New York. We stayed by some friends. And I remember they had teenagers. And I was sitting in the den. These teenagers kept coming to the kitchen and taking snacks and taking Oreos and taking drinks. And I was sitting there. I didn't need no the snacks, no the drinks, no the nuts. But I was asking myself, how in the world they don't think about offering me? A person that is not part of your family is sitting there. I am not going to open the cabinet, but if you are about to take something, you should have the sensitivity to offer to that person. So this is teaching kindness. So your son is having a play date. Instead of you serving and you doing and you giving, make your son, your daughter be the one to prepare the snacks for his friend. Make him think in advance. What toys are you going to share with him? What toys will she like to play with? Make him cultivate the quality of generosity, of enjoying the fact that you are giving to others, because we are not born like that. How are we born? How is a 1-year-old? Me, mine. To mature is to be able to think about the other. When do I know that my children are maturing? When I see their ability to think about others and not only about themselves. They're not only immersed in themselves. What else that she says? Inspirational stories, we said. Get as excited about hearing about your children's acts of loving kindness as you get about the good grades he gets in school. So your daughter came and she got an A+. Amazing, I'm so proud of you. And your daughter came the next day and she says, Mom, I only ate half of my lunch. Why? Because my friend forgot her lunch and I gave her half of mine. Because, and were you hungry? Or what you can do? What can you do? Celebrate, praise her, make a big deal out of it. So really, I want to summarize because I have to finish. We need to ask ourselves, perhaps go on a date with your husband. Really, this requires planning. We need to teach our children to be kind. We need this more than ever because society around us not only is not supporting it, is actually teaching the opposite. So what do we do? And let's plan. Let's bring guests from time to time. Let's sit every meal, every time we finish dinner, let's tell a story about some act of kindness. Let's go together to choose the books that they read. Let's pick more kindness. And it starts, by the way, we saw in the parasha, I read you the midrash that said how the cruelty, the meanness, the evil started in Sodom. How did it start? You remember? How did it start? I just read it, girls. That's what they didn't want, but what caused them not to help others? That they have too much. They have too much. And okay, we want Hashem to bless us with much. I'm not saying don't have. But when I have more, I need to invest more on teaching thoughtfulness and care about others. I need to make my children, if you ask a 2-year-old to clean the table, is he happy or sad that you tell him to do it? 2 years old, excited, happy. Do we do it? Not so much. It's kind of annoying to give a 2-year-old to clean the table. But the earlier you start to giving your children responsibilities of helping around, of cleaning, the easier it's going to be for them to get it as a normal thing. This is a home. We all care for each other. We all do for each other. And they don't grow thinking that you are their servant there to give them and to give them and to give them. So giving them chores and responsibilities for sure will make them better children. And with this, I finish. Somebody asked me about big families, you know, how to parent when you have a big family. I remember observing the kids that my children will bring home in their playdates. Whenever there was a child that came from a large family, in a natural way, that child was more easygoing, more kind. Why? Why? Because even without you making the effort, that child got used to share, to have other siblings that he had to take care of, and he didn't have mommy all the time taking care of him. Mommy had to be divided for others. Never worry for that. That's a blessing. That's good. And of course, there is so much more to give. So may Hashem help us all to get to a right strategy to teach our children to really see kindness as fundamental part of what it means to be Jewish, the children of Abraham Avinu. Thank you.